The African savanna is not simply a vast open land of grass and scattered trees. It is a living system governed by constant pressure, where every sunrise marks the beginning of another day of survival. Across these endless plains, life unfolds under extreme conditions. Temperatures fluctuate sharply, water sources shift with the seasons, and food availability changes without warning. In this environment, survival is not determined by chance, but by adaptation. Among all the creatures that inhabit the savanna, the great herbivores stand out not only for their size, but for the complexity of their survival strategies. Elephants, giraffes, and hippopotamuses dominate the landscape in different ways, yet none of them live without risk. Their immense bodies do not grant immunity. Instead, they demand constant access to food, water, and safe movement across large territories. The savanna follows a strict rhythm. During the wet season, grass grows tall, rivers swell, and food becomes abundant. But this abundance is temporary. When the dry season arrives, water retreats, vegetation hardens, and competition intensifies. It is during these months that survival becomes a test of endurance, memory, and coordination. Large herbivores play a critical role in shaping this environment. Their movements carve paths through dense vegetation. Their feeding habits influence which plants thrive and which disappear. Their presence affects predators, smaller animals, and even the structure of the land itself. The savanna is not shaped only by climate, it is shaped by the animals that move across it every day. Yet, despite their importance, these giants live under constant pressure. Injuries, age, and separation from the group can turn size into a disadvantage rather than protection. To understand the African savanna, one must understand these herbivores not as symbols, but as living organisms responding to an unforgiving system. Their survival is not guaranteed by power alone, but by adaptation, cooperation, and experience passed across generations. This is a journey into that system. A closer look at how the largest herbivores on land endure one of the harshest environments on Earth. The African savanna operates under a clear and unforgiving system. Nothing here exists in isolation. Every movement, every feeding pattern, and every migration is shaped by a balance between scarcity and opportunity. Large herbivores dominate the landscape visually, but survival within this system depends on more than size. Their bodies require enormous amounts of energy, forcing them to spend most of their lives searching for food and water. This constant demand creates predictable patterns, paths worn into the land, seasonal migrations, and shared access points that attract both prey and predators. Water is the primary organizing force of the savanna. Rivers, lakes, and temporary watering holes determine where animals gather, when they move, and how long they can remain in one place. During the wet season, water spreads across the land, reducing pressure and allowing herds to disperse. In contrast, the dry season compresses life into smaller areas, intensifying competition and increasing the risk of confrontation. Food availability follows the same rhythm. Grasses flourish briefly, then dry and harden. Leaves disappear from lower branches. Only species with specialized feeding strategies can maintain access to nutrition when resources decline. This is where the great herbivores reveal their true advantage, not brute strength, but adaptation. Each large herbivore occupies a specific ecological role. Some consume vegetation close to the ground. Others feed high in the trees, while certain species move between land and water to reduce competition. This separation limits direct conflict and allows multiple giants to coexist within the same territory. However, this balance is fragile. When drought extends beyond normal limits, or when movement routes are disrupted, even the largest animals become vulnerable. Injury, age, or isolation can quickly turn an individual into a target. Predators exploit these weaknesses, focusing not on strength, but on opportunity. The savanna does not reward dominance alone. It favors efficiency, memory, and coordination. Groups that communicate effectively and individuals that remember safe routes and reliable resources gain a measurable advantage. Survival, in this environment, is the result of countless small decisions repeated over time. Understanding this system is essential before examining individual species. Elephants, giraffes, and hippopotamuses are not exceptions to the rules of the savanna. They are products of it. Their success depends on how precisely they fit within this structure and how effectively they respond when conditions shift. African elephants are the largest land animals on Earth, but their survival in the savanna is not defined by size alone. Their bodies, which can weigh up to 6 tons, demand constant access to food, water, and safe movement across vast territories. Every day, an elephant must balance strength with efficiency. Modern African elephants adapted to open grasslands and savanna environments thousands of years ago. This shift required changes not only in behavior, but in anatomy. Their massive size offers protection against most predators. Yet it also creates limitations. Heat regulation, energy consumption, and mobility all become critical challenges in a hot, resource-dependent landscape. One of the elephant's most important adaptations is its ears. These large, thin structures are not decorative. They function as a natural cooling system. Thousands of blood vessels run close to the surface, allowing excess heat to dissipate as the elephant flaps its ears. In extreme temperatures, this mechanism helps prevent overheating, which could otherwise be fatal for an animal of such mass. At the same time, ear movements serve as a form of communication, signaling alertness, dominance, or distress to other members of the group. The elephant's trunk is its most versatile survival tool. Composed of tens of thousands of muscles, it combines strength and precision. An elephant can use its trunk to lift heavy branches, strip bark from trees, dig into dry riverbeds in search of underground water, or gently pick up small objects. This flexibility allows elephants to access resources that many other animals cannot reach, especially during prolonged dry seasons. Tusks, which are elongated incisor teeth, play a similar dual role. They are used for defense, but also function as tools. Elephants use their tusks to dig for water, break through dense vegetation, and remove tree bark to access nutrients hidden beneath. In difficult conditions, tusks can mean the difference between survival and starvation not only for elephants, but for other species that later benefit from the waterholes and pathways elephants create. Despite their size, elephants move with surprising quietness. The structure of their feet includes thick, cushioned pads that absorb impact and distribute weight evenly. This allows elephants to travel long distances without damaging their joints and enables them to cross soft ground without sinking. Over time, their repeated movements form trails that other animals use, shaping the physical layout of the savanna. Elephants are not solitary survivors. They live in complex social groups led by an experienced female known as the matriarch. Her memory is a critical asset. She remembers the locations of water sources, seasonal migration routes, and dangerous areas. During droughts, this knowledge often determines whether the group survives. Younger elephants rely on this experience, learning survival strategies through observation rather than instinct alone. Predators rarely target adult elephants. Lions and hyenas usually focus on calves, elderly individuals, or elephants weakened by injury. When threatened, elephant groups form defensive formations, placing calves at the center and using their size to deter attackers. Speed also plays a role. Despite their mass, elephants can reach speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour over short distances, allowing them to escape danger or respond aggressively when necessary. Beyond individual survival, elephants shape the ecosystem around them. By knocking down trees, dispersing seeds through their droppings, and creating open spaces, they influence plant growth and habitat structure. Many species indirectly depend on elephant activity, making them a foundational element of the savanna system. However, this influence comes with vulnerability. Human pressure, habitat loss, and illegal hunting have significantly reduced elephant populations in many regions. While conservation efforts have stabilized numbers in some protected areas, elephants remain highly dependent on large, uninterrupted landscapes to maintain their natural behavior. African elephants are not simply giants of the savanna. They are moving forces that alter the land, preserve memory across generations, and sustain the balance of one of the world's most demanding ecosystems. Giraffes occupy a unique position in the African savanna. Their height immediately separates them from every other land animal, granting access to food sources that remain unreachable to most species. This advantage, however, comes with its own set of biological and survival challenges. Adult giraffes can reach heights of over 5 meters, making them the tallest mammals on Earth. Nearly half of that height is formed by the neck alone. Despite its length, the giraffe's neck contains the same number of cervical vertebrae as humans. Each vertebra is simply elongated, allowing the neck to extend upward without sacrificing flexibility or strength. This height provides a critical feeding advantage. Giraffes primarily consume leaves from tall trees, particularly acacias, which are rich in nutrients and largely inaccessible to other herbivores. Their long, dark-colored tongues measuring up to 45 centimeters are specially adapted for this task. The thick, flexible tongue resists injury from sharp thorns and helps strip leaves efficiently. The dark pigmentation protects it from prolonged exposure to intense sunlight. Vision is another advantage shaped by height. From their elevated position, giraffes can detect movement across vast distances. Their eyes are positioned to provide a wide field of view, allowing early detection of predators such as lions and hyenas. This early warning system reduces the need for confrontation and increases the likelihood of escape before danger closes in. Movement, however, is where giraffes face significant risk. Drinking water requires them to spread their front legs and lower their heads, placing them in a vulnerable position. For this reason, giraffes rely heavily on moisture-rich leaves and may go several days without drinking. When they do approach water sources, vigilance within the group increases, and time spent in this posture is kept as short as possible. The giraffe's cardiovascular system reflects one of the most advanced adaptations among land animals. To pump blood to the brain, the heart generates extremely high pressure. At the same time, specialized valves in the blood vessels prevent dangerous surges when the giraffe lowers or raises its head. Without this system, sudden changes in posture would result in loss of consciousness or internal damage. Giraffes are capable of surprising speed. When threatened, they can reach speeds of up to 60 kilometers per hour over short distances. Their long legs allow them to cover ground quickly, making flight their primary defense strategy. When escape is not possible, giraffes rely on powerful kicks delivered with their hind legs. A single strike can cause severe injury or death to a predator, making direct attacks a dangerous choice. Socially, giraffes live in flexible groups that change composition throughout the day. These loose associations reduce competition for food, while maintaining collective awareness of threats. Mothers often form temporary nursery groups, where calves remain together under shared supervision. This structure increases survival rates during the most vulnerable stages of life. Calves are born standing, falling several meters to the ground at birth. This sudden impact stimulates breathing and muscle activation. Within hours, a calf can stand and begin moving, a necessity in an environment where immobility attracts predators. Despite this rapid development, juvenile mortality remains high, particularly during the first year. Ecologically, giraffes help regulate vegetation at higher levels of the savanna. By feeding on tall trees, they prevent overgrowth and promote plant diversity. Their movements also contribute to seed dispersal, linking them to broader ecological processes that extend beyond their immediate needs. Giraffes survive not because they dominate the savanna, but because they exploit a narrow ecological space with precision. Height gives them access, vision, and early warning, but survival depends on restraint, timing, and the ability to avoid unnecessary conflict. Hippopotamuses occupy a unique and often misunderstood role in the African savanna. At first glance, they appear slow and passive, spending most of the day partially submerged in rivers and lakes. In reality, this behavior reflects a highly specialized survival strategy shaped by extreme conditions and constant territorial pressure. Adult male hippopotamuses can weigh up to 3 tons, placing them among the heaviest land mammals on Earth. This mass provides natural protection, but it also creates challenges related to heat regulation and mobility. Water becomes essential. By remaining submerged during daylight hours, hippos prevent overheating and reduce energy loss in the intense savanna heat. The hippopotamus's skin plays a critical role in survival. Thick and resilient, it acts as a physical barrier against injury. In addition, hippos secrete a reddish, oily substance often referred to as blood sweat. Despite its appearance, this secretion functions as a natural sunscreen and antibacterial layer, protecting the skin from ultraviolet radiation and infection. Without this adaptation, prolonged exposure to sunlight would quickly damage their bodies. Beneath their calm appearance lies extraordinary strength. The hippopotamus possesses one of the most powerful bite forces in the animal kingdom. Its jaws can open to an extreme angle, revealing large canine teeth that continue to grow throughout its life. These teeth are not used for feeding, but for defense and territorial combat. A single bite is capable of inflicting fatal injuries on predators or rival males. Hippos are highly territorial, particularly in water. Rivers and lakes are divided into defended zones controlled by dominant males. These territories determine access to mates and safe resting areas. When another male enters a controlled space, confrontation is likely. These encounters are violent and often result in severe injuries or death. Dominance is maintained through repeated displays of aggression, reinforcing a strict social hierarchy. Despite their size, hippopotamuses are not limited to water. As night falls, they leave rivers and travel across land in search of grass. These nightly journeys can extend several kilometers from the water's edge. Hippos follow established paths created through repeated movement, minimizing energy expenditure and reducing exposure time. On land, they can reach speeds of up to 30 kilometers per hour over short distances, making them far more mobile than their appearance suggests. Feeding occurs almost exclusively at night. Hippos consume large quantities of grass, relying on a slow metabolism to sustain long periods without food. Their digestive system extracts nutrients efficiently, allowing them to survive even when vegetation quality declines during dry seasons. This feeding pattern reduces competition with other herbivores and lowers the risk of direct encounters with predators. Social structure among hippopotamuses is rigid. Groups typically consist of one dominant male, multiple females, and their offspring. While females cooperate in protecting calves, the dominant male enforces order and territory boundaries. Calves are usually born in water, where buoyancy provides immediate safety. Mothers remain highly protective, positioning themselves between the calf and any potential threat. Predation on adult hippopotamuses is rare. Lions and crocodiles occasionally target calves or weakened individuals, but direct attacks on healthy adults carry significant risk. Hippos respond aggressively to perceived threats, often charging without warning. This behavior has established their reputation as one of the most dangerous animals in Africa. Ecologically, hippopotamuses play a crucial role in aquatic systems. Their waste enriches water with nutrients, supporting algae growth and feeding entire food chains. By moving between land and water, hippos transfer nutrients across ecosystems, linking grasslands to rivers in a continuous cycle. Hippopotamuses survive not through speed or stealth, but through dominance, territorial control, and precise use of space. Their existence reflects a balance between land and water, power and restraint, movement and stillness, an adaptation shaped by the demands of both environments. The African savanna does not function as a collection of separate species. It operates as a connected system, where the survival of each large herbivore directly influences the stability of the entire environment. Elephants, giraffes, and hippopotamuses occupy different ecological layers, reducing direct competition while shaping the same landscape. Elephants modify the structure of vegetation by breaking trees, opening pathways, and redistributing plant growth. Giraffes regulate vegetation at higher levels, feeding where few others can reach. Hippopotamuses link land and water systems, transporting nutrients between grasslands and rivers. Together, their activities maintain a dynamic balance that allows multiple species to coexist. This balance extends beyond plants. Predator behavior is shaped by the presence of these herbivores. Lions, hyenas, and crocodiles do not hunt randomly. They rely on predictable movement patterns, weakened individuals, and seasonal vulnerabilities. When large herbivores migrate, predators adjust. When drought concentrates animals near limited water sources, predation pressure increases. Every shift in herbivore behavior sends ripples through the food web. Water remains the central organizing force. During dry periods, rivers and lakes become convergence points for life. Herbivores gather, predators wait, and competition intensifies. When rains return, dispersion follows. These cycles prevent permanent domination by any single species and force continuous adaptation. Stability in the savanna is not achieved through stillness, but through constant change. The removal or decline of one major herbivore disrupts this system. Without elephants, vegetation becomes denser, reducing open grazing areas and altering fire patterns. Without giraffes, tree growth shifts, affecting food availability for smaller species. Without hippopotamuses, nutrient flow in aquatic systems declines, weakening entire river ecosystems. The loss of one element creates imbalance across multiple layers of the environment. Human activity has intensified these disruptions. Habitat fragmentation limits migration routes. Water sources are altered or reduced. As natural movement patterns break down, animals are forced into smaller areas, increasing stress, competition, and conflict. The system becomes less flexible, more vulnerable to extreme events such as prolonged drought. Despite these pressures, the savanna continues to function because of the adaptability of its inhabitants. Large herbivores respond not with dominance, but with adjustment. They alter feeding behavior, shift movement timing, and rely on collective knowledge to survive changing conditions. This resilience is not infinite, but it demonstrates the underlying strength of a system built on interdependence rather than isolation. The savanna persists because no species operates alone. Survival is distributed across relationships between land and water, plants and animals, strength and restraint. Understanding this interconnected balance reveals why the loss of even a single component carries consequences far beyond what is immediately visible. The African savanna does not operate on emotion, intention, or moral balance. It functions through necessity. Every large herbivore examined in this system survives not because it is admired, protected, or favored, but because its adaptations allow it to endure pressure. Elephants reshape the land because their survival depends on access and memory. Giraffes occupy height because it reduces competition and risk. Hippopotamuses dominate water because it regulates heat, territory, and reproduction. None of these strategies exist for harmony. They exist for continuity. The savanna does not reward excess. Size creates demand. Height creates exposure. Strength invites challenge. Each advantage carries a cost that must be managed daily. When conditions shift, when water recedes, vegetation hardens, or movement routes collapse, survival depends on how precisely an animal fits within the system, not on how powerful it appears. There is no pause in this environment. Even moments of abundance are temporary. Wet seasons fade. Calves grow. Elders weaken. Pressure transfers from one point to another, forcing constant adjustment. Survival here is not a single event, but a process repeated across generations. Human presence has altered this balance, compressing space and disrupting cycles that once absorbed stress naturally. Migration routes narrow. Water sources vanish or become permanent traps. In these conditions, the margin for error shrinks. What once allowed flexibility now demands precision. Yet the savanna persists because its core structure remains intact. Interdependence sustains it. The actions of one species influence the survival of many others. Remove a single component, and the system does not collapse immediately, but it weakens, layer by layer. This is the reality of the African savanna. No promises, no protection, no sentiment. Only systems shaped by time, pressure, and adaptation, where survival continues as long as balance remains, and ends quietly when it does not.